In this video, we have to understand a very important concept about Kubernetes application deployment maintenance, that is the startup probes. So we have two types of probes we can define while running the containers inside the pod. And there is liveness probe and readiness probe. In this video, we will understand the concept of these probes, its practical application in professional life, and the benefits and why it is mandatory to use these probes in our production environment. So if you just go to Kubernetes IO's documentation, just search for probes, or you can write startup probes, so you can get this page. I will recommend you to read this whole page because it contains a lot of useful information that I am going to explain you. But if you will read this, maybe you will get with some different better concepts. So liveness probe and readiness probe uh, makes your application available in sense of some parameters. So if I go down, you can see here there are some examples given. There is a liveness probe defined in this container of this pod. So liveness probe is executing a command cat temp healthy, mean it is trying to run view this file where in this container that name is liveness and its image is this one. So if this file is available, then it is good, mean its value will return as true, and it will not perform anything regarding the recovery of this container. But if this file is not found, it will perform after every 5 seconds, period seconds, to recheck the availability of this file. And if this file is not available, it will restart the container. Which container? Under this container, we have defined the probe. So we can have multiple container inside a pod, and each container can have its own liveness probe. So here is an example of just checking a file. So this can be any Linux command we can write here. This is a very simple example. You can write any complex example like any other script you want to see, any file created by your application should be available, and that is critical to be available in order to run your application. So if we go down, we can see further the liveness probe. We can also check in sense of HTTP GET, mean it will it will try to hit this container by IP slash this path on this port, and if this is responding, then result is true, and if it is not responding on port 8080 this path, then it means its result is it's not running, and this path is mandatory to run the application. So in this case, if it is not running, it will restart the container. So normally what happen, there can be scenarios in our life that container is running but it is not giving us the actual results that we need. So if container is running, it is getting traffic from outside, and it is not entertaining the stuff that was deployed in that application. So that running container could generate very you can say false results, and it can get the request but it will not serve any service. So these probes will make your container availability and its health check. So to make it practical, I have kubectl get nodes. I have a cluster, and here I am going to show you I have created this liveness probe app. It's a deployment. label I set according to its deployment name Liveness Probe app, and its replica is 1. And I have not defined any resources, but I defined here the Liveness Probe. I defined HTTP GET path API on port 80. So this is a very basic uh, Nginx application, and we know slash API is not available when Nginx is running. Nginx is simply showing some default Nginx web page. But the responsibility of this deployment is to provide a slash API URL after the IP. When we are writing in the browser, http colon forward slash double forward slash IP and then slash API should be responding on port 80. And I just set initial delay second, initially just after starting the container, wait for 2 seconds. And if it is not working, retry after every 4 seconds. This liveness probe, maybe after some time, this API is reachable. So if after every 4 seconds, if it is not available, it will restart this container. So there can be multiple container. Each container can have its own prop. So I just use the second one, HTTP GET. And you can also define the HTTP headers, mean any specific header is coming from this URL. You can also define, but I just made this very simple. So let me just apply this kubectl apply -f kubectl get deploy. I did everything in default namespace. Get pod, just see if this pod will be restarted. So here you can see after specific time we try to search the slash API URL by the liveness probe, and it does not work, and it restart after every 4 seconds the container. So whenever it is going to restart, at that time application will not be available. But remember, during these 4 seconds, the container is running, it's ready state 1 out of 1. The service attached with this container, this pod, is sending the request to this pod, but end user is not able to get the slash API. So this situation, this type of liveness probe we can use if this slash API is not reachable due to some initially it was responding, but due to some issue during the running of this container, something happened in the inside the container and API stopped responding, just restart it. So we created a situation where it will never ever be available, so it will keep checking and restarting it. So this type of liveness probe can help us to recover the container in case of some issue happen while running the container. So now let me modify this liveness probe with some actual path that will be available, like forward slash mean nothing after the IP and port, and just check on port 80 if this is available. So this will be true this time. Let me just apply this kubectl apply -f kubectl get pod. So this time we will see that it will be available. Yes, it is available now. So now 1 out of 1 is available, and if we watch, so it is consecutively running. And if in any case its service stopped inside the container, a specific URL is not responding, then it will restart the container. So now I will do one type of another probe. I will just change here with execute and command, and command I want to run like echo and slash temp slash hello.txt file. This time it will execute this command. I will use like cat to open this file. If this file is available, then it's good. If not available, then restart the container. Let's see what happened. Let me see get deploy kubectl delete deploy kubectl apply -f liveness prob kubectl get deploy get pod. It's running. Now let's see it's restarting. It's restarted one time. So it will keep it restarting after every 4-second delay we defined in the manifest to make the availability of this file. So it depends, maybe after restarting your application will automatically create this file, or due to some reason this file is deleted. So restarting the container will automatically create the file. This depends on your application. So now let me kubectl get pod kubectl execute inside this pod, and I will manually create sorry, it's crashed, so I cannot create this manually, because whenever I will enter in this pod it will restart. So I was trying to create this file inside, so this is not possible. So we must have to troubleshoot this issue, why the application is not creating this file. So this was regarding the liveness probe. Okay, similarly, you can check, we can check TCP, we tried this, we can check gRPC liveness probe. Okay, specific port on gRPC we can check. And now if we go down, there is a readiness probe. So readiness probe is different than the liveness probe. So the readiness probe also use the same syntax, like you can verify some command. You can verify by using some TCP probe, same we did, some availability of some port, uh, and by the application and some specific path. We can also use this one. So let me create kubectl. Let me first of all delete the current deployment. Kubectl delete deploy. So deployment is deleted. Readiness probe. It's also a deployment with one replica. Is using Nginx image, very simple. Same deployment, I just changed the name, and here it's readiness probe instead of liveness probe. And it is trying to search this file, open this file. If it's not available, let's see what happened. So let me deploy this ctl apply -f ctl get deploy get pod and watch. This time we can see it's running. But 0 out of 1 means 0 out of 1 container is ready to serve the external traffic. Any request that will come to this pod will not be entertained because 0 out of 1 mean there is a one container defined in this deployment that is not ready to serve. There can be 0 out of 2 or 1 out of 2 or just like 2 out of 5 if there are 5 containers and only 2 are ready with their and each container has its own respective readiness prop. Only 2 are responding and 3 are not able to respond, then it will show 2 out of 5. So this you have to understand why sometimes we are looking running but 0 out of 1. So this is the reason. And why it is, it will not restart the container. It will straightforward set the status of this pod that I am not ready to entertain any traffic, and the service attached with this pod will not send any requests to this pod. For example, this is a deployment with 10 pods and some pods are showing 0 out of 1, some are 1 out of 1. So service will only send the request to the healthy containers only. So it is consecutively looking for that specific file that we defined, and until unless that file will not be available, it will not entertain any traffic. So I'll just this file kubectl get pod kubectl execute it this pod, and let me just create this file under the temp get. Okay, this file I created. Now get pod. So you can see 1 out of 1 is ready. Now any traffic that will be the service I will send the traffic to this container because it's in running state as well as ready to get the traffic. So it's not mandatory that only container is running and traffic is received. So uh, it is mandatory to set the liveness and readiness prop both in your containers. We can set both at the same time for any container, so that in case of failure of specific service or any specific file not available, then it will restart. And if it is not available, then we can stop the incoming traffic. If we can stop the incoming traffic to avoid any failure of serv failure of service accessibility by the end user. So now it's running. So same we can do the readiness prop with this way. The TCP check, we can use HTTP GET and we can define some URL that it should be available, it should be reachable, and otherwise it will not entertain any traffic. So I hope you got the idea. You can read this whole documentation. There are quite useful examples given here. And if you are getting any problem, you can contact me. I will try to guide you as much as possible.